Have you ever stopped to think about how a simple attitude can change not only your life, but the lives of those around you? Today, we're going to explore how true growth comes from giving others what you most desire for yourself. Prepare yourself for a story that will inspire you to act with fraternity and purpose.
Dedicate time to comfort and help those in need, even when it demands effort on your part. Don't wait to be sought out to act with fraternity, but position yourself as an instrument of support for those facing difficulties. By comforting a sad heart, you are not just fulfilling your human duty, you will be experiencing a reward much greater than what you give. True growth comes from giving others what you most desire for yourself. This is the essence of entrepreneurship that transforms lives. And now, listen to the story that Apollo will share, and discover how small actions can create big changes.
In the quiet Villa Serena, Stephen was known for his welcoming smile and for being the faithful guardian of his bakery, the pulsating heart of that small community. The bakery, a simple but beloved business, was, however, facing problems. Finances were compromised, debts were accumulating, and the competition from large supermarkets was becoming increasingly oppressive. For Stephen, a simple man of faith, the pressure of the situation was stunning and demanded great concentration. He felt lost, adrift, unsure of how to act, and uncertain if it was worth continuing. The dilemma consumed him daily. At night, as he laid his head on his pillow, Stephen wondered if there was anything left to do to keep his bakery going. However, in moments of quietness and reflection, he knew that his faith in God had always sustained him. But, faced with financial chaos, even his faith seemed to be tested. He felt like Peter, walking on water, but beginning to sink. One day, while standing at the door of his bakery, a simple but transformative episode occurred. A thin, weary family approached, looking at the bakery window with eyes of desire and necessity. Stephen observed, and on impulse, felt touched by a feeling of profound compassion. They didn't just need bread, they needed dignity. And it was at that moment that the idea of making more bread and distributing it for free arose in his mind. He didn't know where the resources would come from, but he believed the gesture would be very noble, and he would feel very happy and forget his own distress for a while. This could bring something good to his soul, easing his exclusive concerns about the bakery. That is how Stephen, amidst his pain, transformed his fear into action. The extra batch of bread he now made was not just a sustaining food for his business, but a form of comfort and a small act of resistance against his adversities. He set aside this daily quota of bread for donation, without expecting financial return, but hoping that it would soothe the pain of his bad thoughts about the bakery's financial trajectory, deep down, hoping his faith would make him strong enough to maintain his intentions. Among those who started receiving his bread was Dinah, a warrior mother who struggled daily to raise her 2 children. Dinah worked as a seamstress, but the money she earned barely covered the rent. The sadness etched on her face never went unnoticed by Stephen, who, besides offering bread, also made her an unusual offer. "Dinah, you sew well, and I believe we can help each other. I have a room next door, where I store the bakery's stock. I can create a partition, and if you want, you can use the space to sell your clothes." Dinah accepted, with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. She wasn't sure if she could completely trust Stephen, but something in her heart told her he was genuine. She set about arranging her new workspace and then began to display the clothes she produced in the small room next to the bakery. The first few days were difficult, but over time, Dinah's clothes began to catch the attention of the townspeople. Stephen then had an idea: to create a display window to better showcase her products. And it wasn't long before other people joined the initiative. Homemade sweets, handicrafts, even music lessons were offered in the room. The place, once just a warehouse for flowers and such, transformed into a true community center. Stephen began to realize that his bakery was no longer just a place of sale, but a convergence point for everyone's dreams. He felt something deeper was happening, something beyond simple commerce. The community was rebuilding itself, and he was at the center of it all. The pain he had felt before, the sense of failure and helplessness, was slowly replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. He began to understand that personal preparation, the ability to handle life's challenges, to stand firm in the face of difficulties, came not just from his own strength, but from something greater. He felt the presence and action of God in every act of generosity, in every smile he received at his bakery. He began to comprehend that the true value of his life was not in numbers, but in the impact he had on the lives of others. Stephen's story, however, was far from over. One day George, a tourist passing through the town, learned about Dinah's work and was also enchanted by Stephen's initiative. George owned a chain of craft stores and saw the potential in Dinah's clothes. He made her an unrefusable invitation. "Dinah, I would love for your pieces to be sold in our stores. I will help you expand." The news of Dinah and Stephen spread quickly, and soon George began to meet other small entrepreneurs in the town, who until then were hidden in anonymity and the shadows of the crisis, started to be noticed and gained the opportunities they deserved. Stephen, who had almost given up on everything, saw his bakery flourish in a way he had never imagined. His business vision, which was previously limited to just selling bread, now expanded to something much greater. He had become a facilitator of dreams. The fear and insecurity that once paralyzed him gave way to confidence and gratitude, and his bakery became, in fact, a center for community gathering, development, resilience, and solidarity. Time passed, and the town of Villa Serena became known as the City of Possible Dreams. Stephen's business prospered, but the greatest prize he received was not the increase in sales, but the positive impact he had on the lives of others. Stephen's story is a powerful reminder that true entrepreneurship is not just about financial profit, but about building bridges, creating opportunities, and giving others what you most desire for yourself: dignity, hope, and the possibility of a new beginning. Years later, Stephen, now an older man, looked at his bakery, which had become a symbol of hope. He knew that everything that had happened was a response from God to his courage and generosity, but he also knew that the true preparation for success had come from his willingness to help others, even when his own life was in ruins. And so he continued, like a true baker of hope, nourishing not only the body but also the spirit of his community. Next, we will hear the biblical verses that Titus selected to comment on and confirm the occurrences in Stephen's life.
This rich story of Stephen overcoming his financial crisis and strengthening himself with creative thoughts of helping people was developed intuitively and with great inspiration from his knowledge of faith. We have 3 passages that corroborate the assertions of his decisions. The first is Proverbs chapter 11 verse 25, "A generous person will prosper, whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Stephen didn't know it, but his attitude reflected this passage. By sharing the little he had, he opened doors to blessings he never imagined. Generosity does not empty, it multiplies. When we give without expecting anything in return, we create a cycle of goodness that returns to us in unexpected ways. This passage is reinforced by the passage in Luke chapter 6 verse 38, "Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over." Dinah received much more than bread. She gained a chance to rebuild her life. This passage reminds us that the law of sowing and reaping is universal. What we plant, we harvest. Stephen planted solidarity and harvested a strengthened community. And the brief trajectory after taking pity and deciding stemmed from the passage in Galatians chapter 6 verse 2, "In the council, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Stephen carried Dinah's burden, and she, in turn, helped others. This is the essence of loving your neighbor, mutual support that elevates everyone. Now, listen to Apollo's reflection on how Stephen experienced these principles and how they can also abound in our lives, daily.
The story of Stephen, the baker of Villa Serena, is a portrait of the silent strength born of faith and courage in times of adversity. It teaches us that true entrepreneurship is not measured solely by profits, but by the ability to transform lives. Stephen, even surrounded by debt and uncertainty, chose to see beyond his own pain. Instead of retreating into bitterness, he decided to react with compassion, and this simple gesture changed not only his destiny but that of an entire community. In every loaf of bread he produced to donate, Stephen sowed hope, and without realizing it, restored in himself the joy of serving. Compassion not only fed the hungry, but also healed the soul of the baker himself. What seemed like an isolated act of charity proved to be a powerful lesson in reciprocity and purpose. When we reach out to our neighbor, we not only help lift someone up, but also find new meaning for our own journey. God, in his wisdom, often acts through simple gestures. Stephen did not have great resources, but he possessed something of inestimable value, a willing heart. And this is what life, through the lens of faith, teaches us, that true preparedness is not in material security, but in the willingness to act with kindness, even when there are no guarantees of return. By helping Dinah, by creating a space for others to prosper, Stephen transformed his business into a symbol of communion and solidarity. If this reflection touched your heart, leave your like, subscribe to the Think Strong channel, and share this message. In the description, you will find a sociological focus on how small actions can transform entire communities. This story also reveals an essential principle: Every crisis can be an opportunity for rebirth. The despair that once imprisoned him was the fertile ground from which a new way of living sprouted, no longer focused on profit, but on impact. Faith, when accompanied by action, has the power to move mountains. May Stephen's example inspire us to see, within every difficulty, a chance to serve. Perhaps what God expects of us is not just resistance, but surrender, the courage to continue doing good even when everything seems to be collapsing. For it is in this surrender that life is renewed, that hope flourishes, and that the impossible becomes possible. If these reflections have moved you, there is more to come. On the screen now, you have the suggestion of a video that will lead you to another story that occurs in our daily lives. It will deepen how our conscience transforms relationships. We thank you for being a part of Think Strong. Together, we are building a path of wisdom and growth. Until the next reflection.